widespread applications in learning or in understanding data structure and its algorithms. So let's start. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so this is the outline. This is how we'll be learning this whole topic today. So let's start. See, the first thing that comes into your mind when you will looking at complexity. So what complexity means and why, where we'll be using. Actually, when you say complexity, it's a subset of a bigger picture known as design and analysis of algorithm. Although this subject will be dealt in detail in your later semesters, design DA is a specialized subject, so we'll not be able to complete everything, or we won't be able to cover everything what is there in the syllabus. But what is the part which is related to data structure, that will be learning and that will be understanding. So let's start with algorithm basics. The word algorithm means a process or a set of rules to be followed in calculation or other problem solving. See, this definition I have taken it from Wikipedia. So you might have different definition in different books. So therefore, there is another definition like, therefore, algorithm refers to set of rules instruction that step by step define how a work is to be executed. Actually, the algorithm is nothing but it's the way of solving a problem. Simple way of solving a problem. And the way, if you write in step by step and in sequence, that is nothing but that is algorithm. So in algorithm, there are two or three features you have to understand. That each algorithm must may take an input and give may and it will surely give an output. So it may or may not take an input, but it will surely give an output. In between this, you will find there is a box that I have shown you. Okay, I'll use a laser pointer. See, this part is the set of rules. This is the computation part where actually you will do the computation with the inputs or whatever the computation you want to do it, and you will give an output to solve the problem. Now, what are the different characteristics of an algorithm? See, if you could look at the picture, you will find there is well-defined inputs, well-defined outputs, finiteness, feasible, language independent, and clear and ambiguous. So we'll go with clear and ambiguous first. The first characteristic what an algorithm must possess is that it should be very clear and unambiguous. Unambiguous means it should not be in a sense that it is not giving a what to say. It is giving some confusing statements. So never make an algorithm or never make a statement of an algorithm confusing. It should be very clear in all aspects. Next is well-defined inputs. If an algorithm is taking inputs, it should be well-defined. Means you have, if it is an integer, you have to say it is an integer. If it is a float, you have to say it is a float. Well-defined outputs. Whenever you are returning something, this is nothing but this is an output. So whenever you are returning something, make sure it has been defined earlier so that you can return. Finiteness, that algorithm cannot be infinite. It should have finite number of steps, and it should not have infinite loops. Feasible means the algorithm must be simple, generic, and practical. This is a basic thing that each and every algorithm should be there. And language independent. Why language independent means whenever you write an algorithm, it does not depend on any language. It's the way or the recipe to solve a problem. That's all. When you cook, you get a recipe. That recipe is nothing but it's an algorithm. So this recipe, or this algorithm can work in many different languages or many different implementations. So that's the characteristics of algorithm. Now, why to compare algorithms? See, whenever we are talking about design analysis of algorithms and we are talking about complexity, the first thing comes into your mind, why to compare the algorithms? To answer that, let's take an example. Suppose you want to go from a city A to city B. Now, there can be many ways of accomplishing this task. You can either go by flight, you can either go by bus or train or car, or you can either go by ship, or you can also go by bicycle. Now, depending on the availability, costing, and your convenience, you choose or we choose that which one suits us. Now, similarly, in computer science, there are multiple recipes or algorithms or problem solving techniques that are available to solve the same problem, like sorting problem, which we'll be discussing in our later classes. So algorithm analysis helps to determine which algorithm is most suited in context of time and space it will consume. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. Now let's go to next part. See, the goal of the analysis of algorithms is to compare algorithms mainly in terms of running time. Running time means how much time it will take to run the whole program. Also, but also in terms of other factors like memory, developer effort, and etc. So we'll be learning this, or we'll be learning this goal of the analysis in later slides. Now, when you say how to compare algorithms, this is running time, or when we are comparing the running time of two algorithms, now it depends depends on many factors. What are the factors? It depends whether your system is single processor or whether it's a multiprocessor. What is the read and write speed to memory or disk in other case, whether your system is having 32-bit architecture or 64-bit architecture, and what data or what input you are taking. Now, according to you, which among this is most important? May I get some answers?
So input.
Input somebody's
Read write speed to memory.
Read write speed to memory. Huh?
Single versus multiprocessor.
Single versus multiprocessor. Anybody looking for 32-bit and 64-bit architecture? See, whenever you are going for a mobile, you will get all this. Whether it's a single processor, you have now quad-core and octa-core processors right now. And read and write speed to the memory, it has become too fast. And mostly right now, the systems are 64-bit systems. But whenever you are running an algorithm, running a program, if you have multiple devices, it will give multiple timings, or it may give different timings. Like older system will take some more time, the new system will take some less time, but that cannot be the factor to decide whether your algorithm is good or not. So the only thing that is most visible at this moment is nothing but it's the input size. So based on the input, we will calculate a function and then we'll be deciding which one is better. Are you getting the point here? Because the first three topic or first 3 points are device dependent. It is hardware dependent. But the last one is not hardware dependent. It's in hardware independent. Rather, it is data dependent. So we'll be looking at the data dependent architecture. So to analyze or to compare or to execute or how to calculate the running time, we have to define our own model machine. So let's define our own model machine. So we'll assume this, that our machine consists of single processor. It has 32-bit architecture. It has or it follows sequential executions, and it uses 1 unit of time for arithmetical and logical operations. What are arithmetical and logical operations? Yeah, arithmetical operations are plus, minus, multiplication, modulus, division. And logical operations are and, or, not, if, else. These part are logical operations. And we'll also consider 1 unit for assignment, that is equal to, and 1 unit for return. Apart from any other operations apart from these two, the last two, we are not considering that. This is our assumption when we are trying to find out, or whenever we're trying to find out the runtime or running time of an algorithm. Okay, so let's start. Assume that you go to buy a car and a bicycle. Now, if your friend sees you there and asks you what you are buying, then in general you will be saying buying a car. Why? Because the cost of the car is high compared to the cost of the bicycle. Now, this analogy why we have given is we have only considered arithmetical logical operations and assignment and return operations, but not anything else. Why? Because those are negligible as compared to your these execution or these operations. So that is why this analogy has been given. So This is how total cost is equals to cost of car plus cost of bicycle, but total cost is approximately cost of car. So we are going for an approximation. Remember, we are not going to the actual finding out the how much time it will take. We'll go for an approximation that this much will be taken, but in the terms of input data. So this part, when we are considering or when you are trying to find out the running time based on the input data, is nothing but rate of growth of time in context of input data, in context of data. For example, if I write this function sum a b, that means I am returning the addition of two numbers. This a and b are numbers, and we are returning addition of two numbers. Assume that this function is correct, and this is pseudocode. Now, according to your assumption, what is the cost, or what is the analysis, or what is the running time of this algorithm? So, if you look at very carefully, it has one addition and one return statement. So total time that it will take is 2 units. Now, irrespective of whatever the data you give, are you getting the point here? What are the different operations it has? It has a return statement and it has a addition operator, arithmetic operator. So in this case, we'll be having 2 units, or this statement will take 2 units of time. So that is why we are representing t sum. That is, sum is the name of the function. So total time taken by t sum is 2. I'm not telling microseconds, milliseconds, and nanoseconds, because it depends from device to device. But the whole thing that what we are telling, that it takes a constant amount of time. Whatever the machine you use, this will give you a constant amount of time. So this is how t sum has been written. Okay, let's see another one. For example, if you try to add all the elements of an integer array, so how this function will look like? The name of the function is sum of list. It will take 2 arguments. A stands for the array and n stands for the size. Now, I'll decide, or I will declare one total variable, which is I initializing with 0. Then I'm going for a for loop, and from 0 to the last element, I'm looping around, and then I'm adding every value of ai to total, and finally I'm returning total. So this is the whole program is all about. Let's first of all make it line by line. This is line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. Now let us try to find out what is the total cost or total time it will take. So to understand, this particular statement will cost you 1 unit of time. Why? Because it has only one assignment statement. This equal to is nothing but an assignment statement. And how many times it will run? This will run one time only. Now for line 2, it's a loop. It's a loop, but it has 2 operations. What are these 2 operations? One operation is I equal to 0, that is assignment operator. And another operator or another operation is your condition. You actually, we have not written any condition, but in any for loop, condition is a must. So you will be checking a logical condition here when n goes above the threshold limit. So it will go n plus 1. Why additionally 1? Because it will also come and check for when the condition becomes false. Are you getting? So it will run n plus 1 times. It will run n plus 1. 0 to n minus 1 is nothing but 1n only. Plus 1 is nothing but the additional condition that it will check when the condition is not satisfied. So it will run n plus 1 times, and the cost of this for loop is 2. Now, if you look, or if you come down the level 3, that is third. So in the third case, you have 2 operations. One is plus operation and another is equal to operation. Now it will run, it is 2, it is in the third line, it is the cost you will get is 2, and it will run n times. This is very simple. As you know, this is under a for loop. And finally, the return statement will cost you only 1 unit of time, and it will run only one number of time is 1. Okay, now if you calculate the total running time of sum of list, you will get something like this. 1 into 1, that is why it is 1. 2 into n plus 1, that is why it is 2 into n plus 1. Then again 2 into n plus 2 into n and 1. So this is a summation of all the terms here. Now if you try to solve this, you will get something like this, 4n plus 4. But generally, whenever you write a mathematical equation or mathematical expression, you don't actually write the constants. Instead of constant, you use some other constant variable, like, okay, wait a minute, like C1, C2, C3, C4. Let's suppose this constant is C1, this is C2, this is C3, C4. So finally, in a generic way, you will write T, a function of n is the number of input. So this is Cn plus C dash, where C is nothing but C2 plus C3 and C dash is nothing but C1 plus C2 plus C4. If you try to convert this 4n plus 4, it will come down to this equation or this expression. So this is the way you solve running time of an algorithm. So T sum is some k is some constant, and T sum of list is nothing but Cn plus C dash. You already know what is C and C dash. Now similarly, if you try to solve sum of matrix, means if you are given two different matrices, that is two dimensional arrays. So if you try to go for a sum program, if you try to add two matrix, you will achieve an square plus bn plus c as its time cost or running time complexity. So if you look at very carefully, we are actually getting some expression for each and every program, whatever we write, depending on how many times it runs and what is the total cost it takes. So if you try to plot this, you will find T sum is getting is constant. So you are getting a constant line here. It is green. It is shown in green. Then T sum of list, it is increasing as per it increases as you increase the number of data. If your array is very huge, then you will get a huge amount of time. That is, it will increase according to or depending on the number of data. And T sum of matrix, it is taking too much time because the data here has the coefficient or the exponent as 2. So it is actually shooting up. So you can actually classify this function based on some sets. So these sets is represented as big of 1 for constant, big of n for this linear function, and big of n square for this quadratic function. So these are nothing but these are sets where we classify similar kind of functions into sets. So these sets are nothing but are known as asymptotic notation. It's a part of mathematics, and this is what computer science uses as is whatever is given in the mathematics. So this is known as asymptotic notation. Now, what are the different types of analysis are there? Or different types of asymptotic notations are there. So these asymptotic notation are based on some case analysis or on case by case basis. Now, let's suppose there are some algorithm which takes less time or which performs well with which input, and some with which inputs algorithm takes long time. So we have already seen that algorithm can be represented in form of expression. We have already seen this. That means we represent algorithm with multiple expression, one for the case where it takes less time and another for the case where it takes more time. So the first case, when it is talking about less time, it is known as best case. And the second case, when it's calling the worst time, it is calling it is taking more time, it is called worst case. To analyze the algorithm, we need some kind of syntax or asymptotic notation. For example, if you like to search 17 in the first array, array A, in the first array A, how many times you have to check it? Can anybody answer this? Let's suppose I want to check it 10 times, yeah, because there are totally 10 elements. So I will check each and every element once, and finally I will reach to 17. What kind of case it represents? Best case or the worst case?
First,
Neither best, neither worst.
Is it the best case or is it the worst case?
I think neither best, neither worst.
Worst
It
case.
is the worst
No.
case.
Worst
It is
case.
the worst case.
sir. Yes, sir. Worst case.
Because the number you are trying to search is 17 and it is at the end of the list. Are you getting the point? It is at the end of the list. That is why you are taking 10 steps. 10 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the 10th step you are getting your desired result. Now this searching of this element one by one is called linear search. But there is one more way you can search this. But for that you have to sort the array. You can see the next part or next array. The same array is been sorted according to increasing order. Alright. Now if you want to search 17 here, or for example any number here, you can do it using two pointers or two markers. So I have used two markers here. This one the low marker, this one is the high marker. What is the value of low marker? Can anybody tell? It is the position 0, right? And high marker, it is the position 9 according to the array index. According to the array index. So what we'll do is that if you try to find out any number, we'll first try to find out middle of it. How to find the middle of it? So its index is 0, its index is 9. So 0 plus 9 divided by 2. So how much I will get? I will get something around 4.5. So as we are only dealing on index can only be in integers, so I will not be considering the float part, that is after the decimal part. So I am having 4. Am I right? So what is the position 4? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 21. The number 21 where it is located, that position is nothing but 4. So now you tell me whether 17 is less than 21 or greater than 21.
Less than.
It is less than 21. So is there any logic? Should I check after 21? Is there any logic when I know the whole array is sorted? No, sir, right? So I will change the high marker here to the 21 list. So this is high marker is assigned to 21.9 because I am coming to mid part and I am checking whether 21 is greater than 17 or less than 17. If it is greater than 17, then high marker will be assigned here and low marker will go, or low marker will stand as is. Now what is the current situation? What is the value of high marker now? 4. What is the value? What is the value of low marker now? 0. Again you find the middle of it. 0 plus 4 is 4 divided by 2. It is 2. So 0, 1, 2. So this time I am getting 12. 12 is greater than or less than 17. 12 is always less than 17. So should I search in the right or should I search in the left? I should
Right.
search.
Right.
Yeah, I should search the right. So I should not touch the left. So now I will change the marker of what? Low marker I will
Lower.
change. Are you getting the point here? What we are doing? Now what is the present condition of low marker or present assignment of low marker? It is 2. And this is,
4.
and the high marker is 4. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So what is the third number element? 0, 1, 2, 3. So similarly, both marker will be pointing to this, and when both marker are pointing to the same location, you have already reached your destination. Now in the previous case, we have taken 10 steps. In this case, how many steps we have taken?
3 steps.
3 or 4 steps, whatever it is, but it is less than what we have done. Now check, we are just only talking about 10 elements. What about if it gets 1,000 elements or lakh elements or 10 lakh of elements? You will find binary search. This part is known as binary search. Is better searching technique than linear search. But the condition is in binary search, the data should be sorted. If you look at your dictionary, this searching like dictionary. Let's suppose if you want to search for the word moon. Now, when you open an English dictionary, if you have got to a part of when you first turn on the page and you reached a part of called T, so whether you will look after T or before T when you are looking for moon, you will be looking before T. That means you will neglect whatever is there after T. Now, in the second experiment, you are turning the page and you have reached somewhere now like in D or E. So in that case, again, the part after E will be neglected or will be totally avoided. And finally, while doing this and that, while repeating this experiment again and again, you will reach to M. This is the same thing what we have done in binary search. Binary search has been inspired from how we search dictionary word in English dictionary. Simple. That's all. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Next. So according to our analysis, we have three types of analysis. One is worst case. Worst case is it defines the input for which algorithm takes longest time or slowest time to complete. And in best case, it defines the input for which algorithm takes minimum time, least time, or the fastest time to complete. And in average case, it provides a prediction for about the running time of algorithm. This is an average case you already, it is about general case, for any case, it may be there. Now, when we are looking at asymptotic notation, let's suppose same problem is solved by two algorithms. Let's suppose one algorithm gives you an expression 5n squared plus 7 and another algorithm gives you 17n squared plus 6n plus 8. Which one is better? Can you tell me?
The upper one.
Huh? Number one. How many of you are telling number one?
Number one, sir.
Number one.
Okay.
Number one.
Okay. Now, also you have decided. We also know that this is done according to our model machine. What about if model machine changes?
Same, number one.
Same number one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Whenever you are trying to find out, or whenever you have been given a responsibility that which two algorithm among this, which two algorithms is better, there are certain rules. First of all, you always look for when n tends to infinity. That means for larger values of n. So if you are looking at larger values of n, first thing that you have to decide is you have to remove all the lower term variables or lower terms. You have to remove. What are the lower terms in the first case? This is 7, and in the second case it is 6n plus 8. What I mean is, whenever you are talking about finding out time complexity analysis of two algorithms, the first rule is you have to always look for n tends to infinity or for larger values of n. For example, we have already given the analogy of car and bicycle. So whenever you are talking about car and bicycle, and when you compare this, the cost of car is far more than bicycle. So here only higher terms, that is n square terms will be kept, and the lower n terms will be removed. So in the first case, plus 7 is removed. In the second case, 6n plus 8 is removed. This is quadratic rate of growth. You already know. In the first case it is 5n square, and the second case it is 17n square. Next case, you have to also remove the constant multiplier. So 5 and 17 will also be removed. So what will be left with? What will be left with?
N square.
Only n square. So what is the conclusion? Approximately both the algorithms are at the same level. You cannot say this is much better, this is little less, because at the end of the day both are big O of n square. So what is this big O of n square? Now let's try to understand what is big O of n square. This big O of n square is a notation or asymptotic notation. Wait a minute, I'm taking a little bit of time. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Actually, I got a call and suddenly this call was important. I cannot ignore it, so I have taken it. Okay, we'll start with big O notation. So big O notation is actually a mathematical way of classifying the functions, and this actually represents the worst case. Now, what its definition tells, if g is a function of a non-negative input and g itself is non-negative or positive function, now big O of Gn states that this is a set of all function where there exist two constants c and n naught such that fn is less than or equal to cgn for all the values of n greater than or equal to n naught. Now it becomes little heavy, right? Because this is totally mathematics and nobody have understood anything, I guess. So what actually it means is, for example, if I take a function of an algorithm which is like here 5n square plus 2n plus 1. So it tells, and another function is gn which is equal to n square. Now you have to put it in the inequality symbol. Now if I try to find out what is the value of c and n naught here, 5n square will always be greater than n square, 2n square will always be greater than n square, 1n square is always be, it cannot be less than n square, simple. So 5 plus 2 plus 1, 8n square, 8n square, fn will always be less than 8n square. Are you getting the point? What inequality we are talking about? Fn is less than, if you just compare this, fn is less than equal to cgn, this holds true. Fn will always be less than or equal to 8n square. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
It will be always be less. So according to this, you will be having, huh?
In case of 0,
What?
Okay.
That's what I am telling. I'm just telling if n is always greater than or equal to 1. So I have totally eliminated or totally ignored the 0 part. Alright. Whenever n is greater than or equal to 1,
okay,
then this condition or this inequality holds. Fn is less than or equal to 8n square. So according to this equation, your C is nothing but 8 and n naught is nothing but 1. So this is the whole point. And what point we are trying to resist? We are telling that this could be represented as big O of n square. Why? You have eliminated 2n plus 1 lower order terms, and we are only having 5n square. So we have already equated with n square here, or inequality. We have this inequality holds here. So if you try to plot this, you will find Fn cannot grow more than Cgn at any cost. Did you get it?
yes, sir.
Okay. What actually it means is,
Sir,
yes.
sorry, I totally did not get this.
Okay. Will come. No issues. First of all, you just try to understand. Fn was 5n square plus 2n plus 1. Am I right? Now think of all the terms are n square only. What would be the total thing? 8n square. Am I right? Don't think that this is 2n. You think about this is 2n square. Don't think this is 1. This is 1n square. So if I add all three, I will get 8n square. Now does this inequality hold according to this? If this inequality hold according to the definition, in that case, your C is nothing but 8 and your n naught is 1. That means you cannot go. That is this part you cannot go. From there, your Fn will always be less than Cgn. It cannot go more than this. All right. So in that case, this we can represent as big O of n square, because n square is the highest term. What actually it means is, let's suppose you have 100 elements in your array, same searching part. All right. And for searching in each element, if you are looking in a linear search, for searching each element, if you are looking for a linear search, you have to look for each and every element at least once. So in the worst case, we have already told you the big O notation actually represents the worst case. So in worst case, what would be the how many elements you have to search for? You have to search for n elements. Am I right? You have to search for n elements. So how much time it will take? It may take n unit of time. It may take n unit of time. Can you do better than that in the worst case scenario? अरे अगर 10 एलिमेंट है आपके पास, हर एक एलिमेंट का समझो 1 सेकंड लेता है वो चेक करने में, 10 एलिमेंट का कितना लेगा?
10 सेकंड, सर.
10 सेकंड लेगा ना. अब मैं सेकंड का कहानी यहाँ पर छोड़ रहा हूँ. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट यूनिट ऑफ टाइम. दिस यूनिट में डिफर, राइट? ये 10 सेकंड हो सकता है, 10 मिली सेकंड हो सकता है, 10 माइक्रो सेकंड हो सकता है, 10 नैनो सेकंड हो सकता है. क्या आप इससे बेहतर कर सकते हैं? 10 से बेहतर कर सकते हैं?
यस सर.
कर सकते हैं?
यस सर.
10 से पहले हो सकता है आपका ये सर्चिंग? इन द
अगर एलिमेंट पहले हुआ तो
मैं वर्स्ट केस के बारे में बोल रहा हूँ ना यहाँ पर.
ओके सर, तो नहीं कर सकते.
अबाउट वर्स्ट केस. कैन यू बेटर उससे बेहतर हो सकता है?
नो सर.
10 से बेहतर नहीं होगा ना वो कभी भी. 10 से ज्यादा ही होगा. So this is what it meant. Fn cannot overcome Cgn. That means in the worst case, or you cannot better, or you cannot go more than this. This is the worst case. Can you do better than this? No, you cannot do better than this. This will be there. So Fn will always be less than Cgn. Always in the worst case scenario. Did you get the point here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now let's see another notation. This actually gives you the upper bound. Upper bound is nothing but you are talking about worst case. Simple. This in mathematical terms, it is known as upper bound. Is it clear? Okay. Let's go to the next topic. Now find the upper bound of fn is equals to 3n plus 8. आप कर सकते हैं? 3n
Yes, sir.
plus 8. 3n plus 8 is less than or equal to 4n. ये बोल सकते हैं ना हम लोग?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
3n is less than 4n. तो अब यहाँ पर c क्या हुआ? What is the value of c?
4.
4.
So this is 4 and n naught is 8. n naught is 8. कैसे 8?
N is greater than equal to 8.
N is greater than or equal to 8. Fine. Find the upper bound of n square plus 1. N square plus 1 is always be less than 2n square. For
Yes, sir.
all values greater than n is greater than equal to 1. So n square plus 1 can also be told big of n square, जो हम लोग थोड़ी देर पहले देख रहे थे,
Yes, sir.
with the c का वैल्यू 2 और n नॉट का वैल्यू 1. अब आप अगर इधर 3n स्क्वायर लिख देंगे तो यह गलत होगा.
Yes, sir.
n square plus 1 less than or equal to 3n square.
No.
नहीं सर, गलत नहीं होगा.
गलत नहीं होगा ना. So this is what we have written in the last. No uniqueness. There is no unique set of values for n naught and c in proving the asymptotic bounds. Are you getting the point? Let us consider 100n plus 5 is equals to big of n. For this function, there can be multiple n naught and c values possible. For example, solution 1 could be 100n plus 5 will always be less than 100n plus n, which is equal to 101n. So 101n will always be what to say is will be equal to 101, which is always less than or equal to 101n. So in this case, for all n greater than 5, n naught will be 5 and c is 101. It can be one solution. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
And in another case, you can also say इसके पीछे भी 5n लगा दो 5 के पीछे तो 100n plus 5n कितना हुआ 105n. So 100n plus 5 will always be less than 105n. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So for all
Yes,
the
sir.
values of n greater than 1, so n naught could be 1 and c could be 5. So it is up to you what values you want to choose. The only thing is you have to mention or you have to make sure that this inequality it follows. This inequality fn will always be less than or equal to cgn, and you have to find c and n naught. That's it. Now there comes another asymptotic notation which is known as omega notation. All right. This omega notation actually represents the best case. Means what? Fastest time. अगर आपके एरे में जो नंबर आप खोज रहे हो वो पहले पोजीशन में ही है, फॉर एग्जांपल,
Yes.
तो आपको कितना सेकंड चाहिए?
1 second.
1 second.
1 सेकंड. क्या आप उससे बेहतर कर सकते हो?
नहीं.
1 से कम में हो सकता है. 1 से कम में हो सकता है.
नहीं.
No, sir.
1 से कम में नहीं होगा ना. एक है, इससे ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता. मिनिमम आपको उतना वर्स्ट केस में जाना ही पड़ेगा, और एक है 1 सेकंड के नीचे नहीं हो सकता. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So अगर I am taking the same two functions 5n square plus 2n and gn is n square, can you find c and the value of n naught such that it holds this inequality? Can you do this? Yes, we can always do this. If here c could be 5 and naught is 0, that means 5n square will always be less than or equal to fn. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So in this case, what is the value of c?
5.
5, and n I have already chosen 0. So 2n plus 1 always goes for a toss. It doesn't count for anything. Is it clear? So you could choose multiple values here again. Which only thing is you have to make sure this inequality holds in case of omega notation. Now if you try to find out or if you try to plot this, you will get Fn will always be greater than Cgn at this point, at this juncture. Alright, Fn is always greater than Cgn. That means you cannot better Cgn. मिनिमम 1 सेकंड चाहिए, वो आपको चाहिए, इससे कम में नहीं होगा. So this is what it meant. So it actually gives you the lower bound, or in other ways, or in other words, it is best case. Now there is something called theta notation. Now theta notation tells if g of n is a function, then theta of gn is defined as the set of all the function fn where there exists constant c1, c2 and n naught such that c1 gn is always is less than or equal to fn, which is less than equal to c2 gn for all the values of n greater than n naught. Now if you try to do the same thing, 5n square plus 2n plus n square, I could find, or you have already found, what is the value of c1, it is 5, what is the value of c2, 8, what is the value of n naught. How we have found? Just look at big O notation and omega notation. In the omega notation, C1 was 5, in the C was 5, or in big O notation, C was 8. Here, instead of C, omega, we are talking about C1 and C2. And we can say it is theta of n square. Now, if you try to find out, this is how it is bounded inside C2GN and C1GN. Is this clear? This is a theta notation, or in other words, it is average case. This much time, or it may be bounded in between this curve. It may be bounded between this curve or these two lines. So this is how the time complexity or asymptotic notations are defined. Now tell me any problem here. Somebody have not understood, somebody have not followed the concept. Any doubt? Nobody is there? Is it clear or not, first of all? Is it clear?
Yes.
So would you explain theta again?
I'm explaining once again the whole thing. From here, I'm explaining again. We have given two algorithms. How do you say this algorithm is better and that algorithm is not better? For that, you have to follow two rules. First, you always have to think about when n tends to infinity. That means for larger values of n. That means for approximation of n if it becomes very large. And secondly, you have to eliminate all the constant values. So if you look for the larger value, the lower end values will be neglected. That is 7 is neglected in the first case, 6n plus 8 will be neglected in the second case. And when I are saying no constant, so I'll be removing 5 also, I'll be removing 17 also, because these are constant multipliers. It doesn't make any sense. If value of n is too large, then multiplying 5 or multiplying 17 does not have any effect on this. So at the end of the day, you can say these both algorithm runs at the same level, because they both have the rate of growth as quadratic, that is n square. Now, these two functions belong to the same class. So how do you define the same class? We define mathematically using asymptotic notation. The first asymptotic notation that we have defined is big O notation. Big O notation, what it does? It tries to find out the upper bound or worst case scenario. So in the worst case scenario, you can define this function as Gn, which is a non-negative function, and big O of Gn is defined as a set of all the functions where there exist two constants. What are these two constants? C and n naught, such that Fn will always be less than Cgn for values of n which is greater than or equal to n naught. What is the n naught? N naught is the value from where this function holds. Before and not, we are not bothered about it. Before and not, we are totally ignoring it. So to understand the thing, we have taken, let's suppose there are two algorithms, 5n square plus 2n plus 1, and another algorithm is gn, which is represented by n square. So can you say fn is less than cgn? Yes, we can say in a manner, if I equate or if I use the inequality that can hold. So what I have to do, I have to find out what is the value of c and what is the value of n naught. If I convert or if I change 2n plus 1 into n square only, so 5n square plus 2n square plus n square becomes 8n square, and 8n square will always be greater than or equal to cgn. Sorry, fn will always be less than or equal to cgn. So this is how we have written fn is always be less than or equal to cgn. For what values? For the values n is greater than or equal to 1. So that means less than 1, we are not bothered. So that is why our point of changing or our point of these function curves begins from n not equal to 1. And this is how it has been plotted in the diagram or in the graph. You can see when n naught becomes 1, then this inequality exhibits its properties. It means that fn in the worst case scenario, fn cannot go past cgn at any cost. At fn cannot pass, if fn is a program, it cannot go past cgn at any cost. So cgn is kind of upper bound. It cannot go past. So upper bound means what? It is worst case scenario. Now there is one more thing we have seen. This is upper bound we have seen. The next thing we have seen is you could find many values of c and n naught depending on what inequality or what number you are thinking of. So make sure this is not that something that we have been giving. We will be given unique set of values. No, this cannot be true, because this is an inequality, not equality. So inequality could be anything. Next is we have seen omega notation. In omega, what actually it does, it tries to find out the best case or the lower bound. How it is defined? It is defined using omega notation of gn. So gn, omega of gn is nothing but set of all functions. Remember, I am talking about sets, set of all functions where there exists some constant c and n naught. In this case, this is the just reverse function of what we have seen in big O. Here cgn will always be less than fn for all the values of n is greater than n naught. Now if you try to equate or use this inequality in the same two function, you will be finding, if I make n as 0, this lower term 0, so I'll be always be having upper hand, like 5n square will always be greater than will always be less than fn. 5n square will always be less than or equal to fn. Am I right? Yeah, because we are looking at omega notation. This inequality holds true. This inequality holds true. The fn function is 5n square plus 2n plus 1, and 5n square, this is what we have seen, 5n square will always be less than fn. Now here in this case, I've got the value of c of 5 and n naught is equals to 0. Now as n naught is equals to 0, so I'll not be looking at the values lower than 0. So from 0 onwards, you will find fn is always more than cgn. That means cgn cannot go past fn, or in other words, fn cannot better than cgn. Means what? It must take this much amount of time to do the best case also. इससे बेहतर वो नहीं कर सकता. And the next case we have seen is omega notation, theta notation, and theta notation is nothing but is the combination of two. And this is how we have found, because theta notation actually represents the average case, and this is how we have found theta notation. And we have to find C1 and C2. C1 is nothing but the best case, C2 is nothing but the worst case, and this is how we have found it. C2 was 8 and C1 was 5 as per our previous two. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now next I'm going to the next topic. Why is it called asymptotic analysis? So from the discussion for all three notations, worst case, best case and average case, we can easily understand that in every case for a given function fn, we are trying to find another function gn which approximates fn at higher values of n. Is it not? This means gn is also a curve which approximates fn at higher values of n. In mathematics, we call such curve as asymptotic curve. Or in another term, Gn is the asymptotic curve for Fn. And for this reason, we call algorithm analysis asymptotic analysis. आपको समझ में आया ये बात? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
This is a part. This is not. We have developed. This is a part which is developed in mathematics very early 20th century. Now, these are some general rules we'll be following. We analyzing. See, when I'm talking about time complexity, there are two kinds of complexity. One could be time, another could be space. For this class, I'm only talking about time complexity. So when we analyze time complexity, we are always looking for very large input size and will always be considering worst case scenario. Is it clear? Okay. Next, let's suppose I've given a function Tn which is equal to n cube plus 3n square plus 4n square. So if I'm looking for very large input size, then the lower end terms becomes negligible. So what we are left with? High end terms. So n cube is approximately, we are approximating. So n cube is the time complexity of this program or this expression. In other words, we can like when n tends to infinity, these things becomes zero, nothing more than that. And we can say it is cn cube, or this we can write big of n cube, nothing more than that. So you can say if it is n cube, it is big of n cube. What is the rule? Rule is drop lower order terms, we have dropped, and drop constant multiplier. Let's see another example. 17 n raised to 4, 3n cube, 4n plus 8. What is its big O?
N raised to 4.
N raised to 4. N raised to 4. Remove all the lower order terms. Remove the constant multiplier. You are left with big O of n4. If it is 16n plus log n is less than n. So you can say big O of n. Simple. Now, next rule is when you are giving program, you have to find the running time. So running time could be found using the summation of running time of all the fragments. What I mean is, let's see an example. If simple statements like int a equal to 5, a plus plus, all these statements are simple statements. So all these statements constant amount of time. So this is represented using big of 1. These are simple statements. Okay, next. Whenever you are getting a for loop, and inside for loop there are some simple statements, as we have already seen what is simple statements. Now you could say that this for loop runs from 0 to n. So simple statements will also run from 0 to n. So in the worst case scenario, its running time complexity is big O of n. Finally, if you have nested loops, like the first loop runs from n, and the second loop for every element of I, the second loop runs up to n. So the whole thing, the whole loop, all the simple statement inside it will run from n into n. So what is n into n becomes? It becomes big O of n square, big O of n square. Okay, fine. So you have got the idea. Now let's see a program. Now in this program, you could see there are three different fragments are there. This is the first fragment of simple statement. This is the second fragment of for loop, and the third fragment is nested for loop. We already have calculated what is the complexity of this. This is O1, this is On, this is big O of n square. So the total time complexity would be big O of 1, big O of n, big O of On square. Now what is the time complexity of this program?
On square.
Big O of 1 square. Because why? Because these are the lower order terms. We are not bothered about this. We have to ignore this. What is the thing we have to look at? what is the highest order term here? We go of 1 square, and this at the same time you have to always look for the worst case. Is it clear? Okay. Next, let's suppose you got something like this. There is an if condition, and if this if condition works, then your statement, simple statement, will run big of n. And if this if condition doesn't work, then you have a nested loop. This is big of n. This is O n square. What should be its time complexity?
O of n square.
Why?
For the worst case, else will run.
Yes. For the worst case, it will be O n square. So this is another rule. Whenever you are given conditional statements, pick the complexity of condition which is worst case, because if we are not lucky, we will end up here. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are some common formula in rate of growth, because this, I guess, you have learned in your high school mathematics. And these are time complexity. 1 represents constant, log n represents logarithmic complexity, n represents linear complexity, n log n is called linear logarithmic, n square is quadratic, n cube is cubic, 2 raised to n is exponential. And I guess arithmetic series, geometric series, and harmonics, it may be needed in your later classes or in your later subjects also, because I guess you are in 3rd sem. In the 4th sem itself, you will come across all this in a greater detail then. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with that, I'm finishing today's class. If you have any doubt, you can ask me right now, or you can post your question in the WhatsApp. Or I have given my mail ID as well as my phone number is also there. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, anybody having any doubts?
No, sir.
Anyone having any doubts? See, if you keep your doubts inside yourself, then it is gone. You won't be able to ask how silly the question is, because you could be silly for this time being, but you won't be silly for your whole lifetime if you are not asking the question, thinking of what sir will think and what everybody else will think. So make sure you ask the question or write questions whenever. And if you find you are shy enough, you don't want, so you can directly call me or you can mail me in my private, in my personal mobile ID or personal mail ID and personal mobile number. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.